It's NBT Reacts, where you send me examples of horrible, awful, miserable, boring training. I respond in the moment to diagnose what went wrong and what we could do better next time. I'm Adam Spack, certified no boring trainer. In today's episode, we'll review that's right, two for the price of one, two examples of horrible, awful, miserable, boring training. Before we dive in, if you'd like to share your examples of awful, miserable training, feel free to send them to the address you see on screen. Type it up in text, record a quick video, and send it to me describing the scenario, and you too could be in a future episode of NBT Reacts. Today's first example, a young individual is brought into an organization. They've recruited, they've gone through a string of job interviews, they're hired, fill out all the paperwork, they go to their job role, and the amount of training they receive, that's right, the square root of jack. Absolutely no training whatsoever. The individual is thrown to the wolves and expected to figure out how to perform their job duties. They're expected to just sort of navigate on their own, and whenever they have a question, just call the old boss man. Let's unpack that a little bit. You're new in an organization. This is a large multinational type manufacturing company, very complicated product line, very complicated position, and this individual was given no instruction whatsoever on how to perform the basic tasks of the role, no discussion of basic expectations. There was no layout of how to even operate the basic administrative systems of the organization. You can only imagine what happens next. The individual struggles for a period of time, and then they make a quick exit from the organization. So all that time, all that energy, all that expense to bring the talented individual in, and within a short period of time, they've left the company. All of which could have been avoided simply by providing a basic training program, putting together some basic instruction. Even if you don't want to call it a full-blown standalone program, taking the time to put together a series of lessons on important job role skills and how the systems work, any of that, and then spacing that out over a period of time, that would have certainly been far better than just expecting this individual to, through divine osmosis, figure out their job role. The second example comes to us as another large organization, national type company. Individual is brought on board. They come in and they're part of a training group. That's fantastic. So we're already a step ahead of the last story. The individual's training, however, is truncated. So while they do receive some training, the amount of training they normally get was reduced significantly. Now, this particular job role is not just some simple repeatable task where you're doing sort of the same thing day in and day out. It's a number of tasks that access a number of internal systems, departments, and requirements. So this individual is then thrown into their job role, at least with a little bit of training, but not nearly enough to be effective in the role. You can only imagine what happens next. The amount of energy and time it took for the individual to really get up to speed was greatly lengthened, and there was an impact not only on the organization but on the organization's customers. So here we see a great example of the effect of just shortening training time, and we don't have time to train, we got to throw them into the role and they'll figure it out. Well, the people that pay the price are the end customer. What could have been done differently? Well, number one, don't shorten training. If you have a defined training program for a reason, don't just arbitrarily shorten that time period. The story doesn't end there, though. After some period of time, the individual is doing their daily work and they get a tap on the shoulder, and the individual is asked, could you help us train the next group of new hires? What? That's right. So the individual comes into the organization, they're given an abbreviated amount of training, they're thrown in the role, and then they're asked to train the next group of people. And when you just say those words out loud, we didn't bother to train you effectively in the first place, but we're going to ask you to then train the next group of people. What sense does that make? All of which could have been simply addressed by having that individual complete their full training cycle. Oftentimes, when organizations face financial pressures, one of the first things to go is the trainers themselves and the amount of time dedicated to training. Well, the results are predictable and inevitable. But at the end of the day, having somebody who's not fully trained train somebody else and not even be bothered to give them any training about how to train, pants on head, cuckoo bananas crazy. So there you have it, my friends. Two examples of horrible, awful, miserable, boring training. In one case, no training whatsoever, easy solution there. Put something together. The other case, the individual received some amount of training, but the decision was made to cut that training short and then have them start training other people. Final verdict in all of this, that is some hot garbage training. Hot garbage indeed. At the end of the day, training does not need to be cumbersome, complicated, or costly. For free daily training tips, follow me on LinkedIn at Adam Spacht. Ring the bell and you'll get daily training tips. For more free content and to purchase No Boring Training products to help you design, develop, and deliver effective training sessions that produce results, not yawns, visit noboringtraining.com.